Welcome back, guys. So today I got a pretty sweet one for you. I know Atari's been in the news quite a bit lately with the VCS, but forget that noise. I think we got something even more awesome to talk about today, and that is the Retron 77 from Hyperkin. Pretty sweet stuff. HD Atari 2600 clone console. Comes with a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of possibilities with this. And today what we're going to be doing is unboxing this bad boy and taking a look at what she can do. We're going to test out some controllers, some games, all that cool stuff. So thanks for joining me. Let's dive up close and take a look at her. Let's do it. Okay guys, so here she is, the Retron 77 Premium Retro Gaming Console for 2600, up close and personal. You won't see on here anywhere where it says Atari, or Atari 2600, but we know what this is, obviously. The only spot where you will see that it says anything about Atari is where it does say down there, Atari, and 2600 is a registered trademark of Atari Interactive, but that's beside the point. We know what she's being used for. 720p HD audio and video. You do have 16:9, 4:3 aspect ratio button, premium controller, and a micro cable for power. Box looks pretty neat. I think Hyperkin always does a really good job. That gold foiling always gets me, love it. And the little cut corner, their little registered trademark right there. Pretty sweet stuff. I give them, an A+ on packaging with everything they do. Just really awesome stuff. Repeats the information on the back. Doesn't really give you anything else other than like, hey, this is awesome. You can play your games. Do you dig it? So screw it. Let's go ahead and open her up and see what we got. Boom. There she is. Here is the actual Retron 77 in all its glory. This thing right here has some heft to it. Other Hyperkin Retron consoles, they were not as heavy as this. The standalone systems. This thing, it's heavy. It's really heavy for some reason, and that's kind of nice. But we'll go ahead and set that aside for a moment. See what else is in the box. Remove that. Okay, we do have a nice little instruction manual. Goes over what all the buttons do. Pretty much that's it seems like. We'll go over that a little closer in a moment. Multiple languages. We don't need no manuals. Get out of here. Underneath, an accessory box. I'm pretty sure that's just going to be the cables. It does not list on the box that it comes with an HDMI cable or the power brick, but it does. It does list that it comes with the cable, but it doesn't list that it comes with the power brick, which it does. And it comes with a 3-foot, maybe less. I'm not going to open it, but it's pretty short, probably around 3 feet HDMI cable. I don't ever use this stuff. Typically my setup, I already have similar power supplies and whatnot set up, so I'm just going to leave them as is. Let's get this out of there. And there is the controller. It does have a nice little Hyperkin logo on there, if you can see that. I dig it. The fake wood paneling on the controller. 2 buttons, if you're left-handed or right-handed, either way, you are covered. Nice length cable. I'm not sure if the box says how long the cable is. But I would assume at least 6 feet, maybe 10 feet. I'll have to see if it says that on the back of the box. But the controller does feel really good. Very short throw, which is definitely a good thing in my opinion. Very clicky. Got the rubberized grip on there. That feels really nice in my opinion. It is fairly light controller, but I mean, what do you expect from a 2600 standard joystick? Does have some feet on the bottom. Pretty nice stuff. So let's get the console back in front of us. So a little bit closer look here. we do have a bunch of buttons. We have our reset, our mode button, and then a save and load button. Those are for save and load states. Our on and off switch. Our player 1 and player 2 skill level buttons. Pretty nice. Little cut corner. Glows when it's powered on. Glows blue, actually. Looks really nice. Sticker for the fake wood paneling. Still looks pretty nice. Hopefully that doesn't peel off. And then our cartridge slot to accommodate your 2600 games. Very nice. Underneath, little ventilation. You can kind of see in there the board that they have. And then on the back, we do have our slot for a micro USB power, HDMI, a fry button, and we'll touch on that a little more in a moment. Aspect ratio button, 4:3 or 16:9, and then a color or black and white button if your game supports that. Next thing is the micro SD card, and this thing is a pain in the butt to get out. But you do get, focus, a little 128 megabyte micro SD card. Has all of the software for the system on there, everything you need, and then the included games. There are 4 included games on here. Pretty nice stuff, and there's some other stuff you can do with this, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Pop that bad boy back in there. Kind of, that's little annoying getting it in and out, but you probably aren't going to play with that too much, I would assume. But overall, I really dig the look and feel of this system. We're going to take a look at some gameplay and testing some stuff out. We're going to look at using a few controllers and give you my thoughts. The Retrobit 2600 controller, we're going to try that out. And I'll be honest with you, if you think the included Hyperkin controller feels light, this one feels even lighter and doesn't feel as good. I've used this before and it's okay, it gets the job done, but I think the Hyperkin one actually feels a lot nicer. So we're going to check that out. We're also going to try using the official paddles for the 2600. We're also going to use this Wiko or Wyco command control, which has a top button and a base button, I guess you would call it. It's an okay stick. The throw is very far. I really don't like that. A lot of people dig this controller, but we're going to test that out on there as well. And then we're also going to see if this Hyperkin Sega Genesis 6-button controller will work on it as well, since Atari and Sega Genesis use the same controller port. Pretty good stuff. And then with our tests, everything we're doing, we're not reviewing games, but we're going to be taking a look at some gameplay footage while we are testing the features of this device. So we will be looking at Donkey Kong, Super Breakout, Miss Pac-Man, Q*bert, Pitfall, and the original Pac-Man. So those are the games we're going to be using to test this bad boy. So like I said, you can kind of see the board in there, but I am not going to open this up. I do know what the specs are. I'll pull that up now, but this system is an all-winner H3 quad-core ARM SoC. It's clocked at 1 gigahertz, has 128 megabytes RAM. It has a well-trained MCU for dumping cartridges, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then it also has another well-trained MCU for driving, the front panel, the controller ports and buttons and whatnot. It is running off of a Linux, operating system. It's using the Linux 3.4.113 kernel. And if you didn't know, this machine here is not necessarily an HD Atari clone. What it is an emulator. It's running the Stella 3.7.5 emulator, an older version of Stella. Stella runs 2600 games. It's, from what I understand, it's not really modified too much for this system, but you can find more information on that from Hyperkin's website. So that is something to point out there. The way this works is any of these games you put in, and they do face front, so you see the the label, right? It dumps the ROM from the cartridge onto the system and runs it. As soon as you power on, as long as it read the cartridge properly, it's just going to boot up just like it's a normal system. If you boot it up without a cartridge in it, you go to a main menu. So those are some of the things that has to be pointed out with this. This isn't emulating, emulator box, I guess you would say. Just rips the ROM from the cartridge and plays it. I still think it's pretty neat. But going ahead and moving forward and testing some games here and testing these controllers. So using these controllers on this system, the Genesis controller, the Hyperkin and any other Genesis controller that I have tried, does give some issues, as you could see here. It works, but it doesn't work to where you can actually play games. I get a little stuttering. The buttons do work to start the game, but I'm kind of just mashing buttons and pressing and holding buttons and directions just to get things to move. So Sega Genesis controllers at the moment are out. Definitely the system can have updated firmware in the future, and maybe that will change and we'll get Sega Genesis controllers working on this. I think that would be pretty cool. So using the other sticks, the paddle, these guys, the paddles, they work just fine. No issues whatsoever. They work as intended, so that is a definite plus. The command control works just fine, but like I said, I don't like the throw on it, and it just doesn't feel good to me, so it's not a controller I typically use. The Retrobit controller works just fine. Everything moves all right, but I just don't like the feel of this controller. Now, the official controller that the system comes with works great. No issues. It actually feels wonderful to me. It feels better than any of these other options, and I think that is awesome. So, moving forward, taking a look at using the aspect ratio button, that's where my first con comes in. And it's fairly typical with the other Hyperkin systems that use an aspect ratio switch or button. But whenever you power off or power back on, it's reset. I don't think it's necessarily a big issue with the Retron 77 because you do kind of want to be close to the system because you have to use the buttons that are on the system in order to do certain things. Reset, is typically used to actually start your game sometimes. Your save state and load state buttons on there, your mode and your skill buttons. So you kind of need to be close to this, and this can be a good or a bad thing, but really it would have been beneficial if these buttons were mimicked on the actual controller, but hey, it is what it is. The other button we have on here is the fry button. The fry button is an interesting one because back in the day on the original Atari 2600, what you could do is flip the power button on and off real quick and it would glitch out your game. So that's what the fry button mimics, and the reason you would do that is some games you could get it to glitch to extra modes that weren't typically available. You can get to different starting points. A lot of cool little things that you could do by using the fry button on this or flicking the power on and off on an original. It doesn't work that way on this. You do have to use the fry button. So pretty cool stuff. The other thing we have on here is the color and black and white button. So if the game supports it, you can turn it to black and white. So definitely cool if you want to play that way. I remember playing my 2600 back in the day and playing on a 13-inch black and white TV. That was what I had. I never played Atari 2600 games in color. I always played them in black and white. So it's kind of neat, but it's also cool to play them the way they were intended, I guess. The save states. So looking at that, pretty cool. But like I said, I kind of wish those buttons were included on the controller in some way. But you can save your state and then load it for each game just by clicking the save button and then clicking the load button when you want to load up that save state you created. You have one per game, can't cycle through anything, so hey, it's still a pretty cool little thing. We do have a handful of included ROMs on here, some little home brews. I'm not going to go over each one of these because some of them I don't even know how the heck to play. But this game, Baby, as you can see, boots right up. Select it through the menu. I don't know what this game's about, but it looks like you play as a dog and you're dodging these babies, I guess, and going to eat the baby on the other side of the screen. Pretty cool stuff, I guess, but hey, I don't know what to tell you with that one. The other cool thing with the little micro SD slot and the included micro SD card, that's 128 megabytes, right? When was the last time you seen one of those? You can put Atari ROMs on there. You can only put so many. I believe it's up to 18 for them to show up on the screen. I might be wrong, but I think it's 18. And you could boot them up. They have to be in bin format. I can't get them to work in zip. I don't think they're supported that way, but hey, they're small files anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you'd load them up onto the root of the memory card, and you can go ahead and start playing. I have a handful of games loaded up here, and they boot up and work just fine. I think that is pretty cool. So my final thoughts on this thing. Is this for everyone? No, I don't think this is for everyone. This is definitely not going to appeal to every facet of gamers out there. If you're into the 2600, this is definitely one that you may have some interest in, you know, being able to easily play your 2600 games in, you know, on HD TV and 720 very easily. And having those extra features and little things like that is pretty cool. Some people have said they have had issues with certain games loading, that you can only get them to load if you add the ROM to the memory card. I've tested close to 20 games, and not a single one of my games have given me an issue. I've cleaned all my games, they all boot up just fine, but from what I understand, some games that use, you know, higher amount of memory, the way the ROM dumper works, it just doesn't work, I guess. You know, some games you might have to remove and put it back in, or power the system off and on to get it to boot up. You know, I've had that happen to me once with Pitfall. It might have just been that I didn't insert it all the way, or it wasn't completely clean. I don't know, but after the second attempt, it worked just fine. So the big thing is, would I recommend this? Like I said, it's not going to be for everyone, but if you're looking for a solution to play these games and you're fine with it being an emulator, essentially, it's an emulation box, then yes, I highly recommend this. I'm actually really digging this. Obviously, there's plenty of other ways to play your emulated, you know, play your ROMs and emulate the 2600, but I think if you have a collection of cartridges, this is definitely a cool little device to have to be able to easily play, you know, the majority of your library. Like I said, some people are having issues. I have not yet, but that's going to be based on the cartridges you have. I know on Atari Age, you know, forums, they do have a compatibility list that they've been keeping together, so you can definitely peep that out. But if you're in the market for something like this, I'm actually pleasantly surprised and happy with this. Fully understanding, yeah, I can emulate these games elsewhere, but being able to use original controllers or original style controllers that use, you know, the correct inputs and whatnot, and having, you know, the access to the buttons and features of this system is really nice to me, and I'm really, really happy with this. I mean, I can't really say much else about it. I grew up with the 2600, loved it back in the day. You know, I don't necessarily play a lot of 2600 games now, but some of them are definitely fun to revisit and enjoy, and this is a solid option for that. You just have to understand what you are getting. This is not a system on a chip that just, you know, plays the cartridges. It's a ROM dumper with an emulator built in. That's what it is. And does it do its job? For me, it's performed as I would like. For others, they have had issues. Like I said, definitely look up you know, the compatibility with the cartridges if you have a large collection of games. It's all stuff that could possibly be fixed with firmware updates. You know, so definitely keep an eye on that. If you are interested in picking one of these up, you can check them out on CastlemaniaGames.com. Pretty cool website. I'm always supporting these guys, putting them out there because they are freaking awesome. They have them up for pre-order right now. You can use my code Pixel10 to get 10% off, and you will get free shipping. So you will actually be getting this for below MSRP. I believe the MSRP is like 70 bucks. Some people might think that's high. Some people might be fine with that. I think it's not a bad price to pay. So, hey, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Is this just not necessary? Is this something cool? Are you going to pick one up? Let me know what you think. I read all the comments. Really do appreciate you guys stopping in. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Patreon. We do awesome giveaways every month and have a bunch of exclusive content. So, with that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out. Bye-bye, and boom!